connection.
Wonderful. Grace will be joining us also as a presenter today. We're very pleased to have her, and we'll get started just in a moment.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Decoding Federal Solicitations, the first session in the National Legal Aid and Defender Association Partnerships That Work series. My name is Emily Flanagan, and I'm joining you as a program associate focusing primarily on helping those in the Public Defender Network to access federal funds, but really focusing on how I can get everyone in our civil and criminal justice systems working together to support stronger communities on a national level. The That Work series evolved out of an idea that we had here at the National Legal Aid and Defender Association that we're really stronger when we work together, that there are so many opportunities for those in the civil legal services arena as well as the defender legal services arena to partner together, that there are overlaps in community, in clients, and mission. And so we've been working very closely in-house to develop a 5-part webinar series helping our stakeholders to better understand how they can connect with federal resources through innovative partnerships and programming. The Work series is presented jointly by our Defender and Civil Legal Services divisions as a collaborative effort, and we hope that you'll go to our website after this session to learn more about our future sessions. We're starting off this month. The series is currently slated to run through November at the very least. So we hope that you'll join us, not just for today, but for future sessions as well. So joined by Joyce Lupak of LSC San Francisco, Legal Services for Children, and she'll be talking with us a little bit later about how her organization made that very difficult decision whether or not to apply for a federal grant. So today the focus will really be on the ins and outs of how to understand those solicitations and make a decision about what's right for your organization. One of my colleagues here at NLADA often likes to say not all money is good money. However, there are great opportunities out there for all of our organizations if only we're able to look through these solicitations the right way. So I get started, and please do type into the chat box if you have specific questions or if I'm going too fast. If I'm not able to answer your question today live on our webinar, I will certainly get back to you after the webinar wraps. Again, my role at NLADA is helping individuals connect to federal resources when possible, and I can't wait to answer your questions. Federal solicitations, one of the reasons why we wanted to host this session first was that these solicitations, these documents, are very long and often confusing. Capacity is an issue at many, if not all, of our organizations, so just reading through these grant applications can take more time than we might feel we have. Before you get started looking at a solicitation, I really encourage you to about just the bare bones first. What is the deadline for application? Sometimes these deadlines change kind of midstream, and sometimes we become aware of solicitations when there's only a week left before the deadline is reached. So thinking about that and really building out from there whether or not you and your organization have the opportunity to complete a compelling application in the time available is a key first step. Once decided that you have enough time to get your application done, really encourage you to think about the mission of the agency that's issued this call for applications. Federal agencies have very clear and strong missions. They're often stated on the agency page as well as in the solicitation itself. Here you can see that the mission is that top red circle on the right-hand side of your screens. And anytime you're applying for federal funds, you're going to want to make sure that the work and the program that you propose speaks directly to the execution of that mission. That's not to say that your organization needs to have an exact duplicate mission of the agency, but you need to be able to explain and how your program supports that agency's mission. I have a couple comments that there's an issue with their screen sharing. Let me give this one more try. Folks, are we seeing the screen now? Perfect. So the top red circle indicates often where you'll find the mission of the agency, and the bottom red circle there is the deadline. Mission is very important. It will come up again and again and again during the execution of your grant. You'll often ask in documentation to explain why your particular activities are in support of that mission. So head off at the pass. Make sure that the work you're proposing is aligned with that initial stated mission is a key component to a successful application. Session, I'm going to focus on 4 key parts of a federal solicitation. You can see that there are many, many more. Again, these are long documents, but today we'll be focusing on sort of the Cliff Notes version. You're going to want, in reviewing these solicitations, to focus on the goals of the program, the deliverables that are required of end recipients, eligibility to figure out whether or not you're qualified to apply, and if you have some gaps in your bench that you might need to fill with partners. Finally, the application checklist. These applications, when you submit them, are very long, and this is a federal program, so the likelihood that someone will reach out to you to let you know that you missed one small document is unlikely, and you certainly would not want to have all of your work go to waste by failing to attach some resume or a small detail. About those goals and the goals of the program that are outlined in the solicitation. You'll think about whether or not they align with your current work. I think we all know that it's much easier to find funding, or much more effective, I should say, to find funding that we're something we're already doing rather than building a program from ground up. Reading through the goals, objectives, and deliverable section, be thinking about if there's work that your office is already doing that is similar or the same. Or if there's work that you've done in the past that you could bring back to life using this funding. Also, keep an eye out for things that you'll want to work into your proposal, key language or terms or particular concrete deliverables. The example on the right-hand side of the screen, Category 1 lists specifically that the program will deliver strategic planning services and it will use data and research. Category 2 specifically notes that the recipient will create a platform. So in thinking about those things, you'll want to be able to identify whether or not you're familiar with strategic planning processes or facilitated one in the past. Think about how your organization uses data and why you're innovative and effective in this way. And particularly as it relates in this example to creating a platform, your organization uses technology and what your capacity is to deliver a technology platform to a federal agency. So you'll also really want to refer back to the solicitation to identify each and every item that you're going to deliver to them as a recipient. Again, the same way that you did with the goals, you want to keep an eye out for specific technical deliverables and concrete deliverables. So in this example, one deliverable is managing an online process. If you work at an organization that has never hosted an online application or online registration for an event, this might be challenging for you. Excuse me. Particular solicitation, and many like it, also specifically states doing research partners. Any that you see a solicitation that speaks that's outright of particular partnerships, you'll think about who's in your wheelhouse, who's in your community that you've worked with in the past, and what's your capacity to continue to develop that partnership. And develop strategic planning tools. The proposal here should identify exactly what those tools might be, what the development planning process is, how you'll be disseminating those tools out to recipients. If you've gotten to this point in reviewing a solicitation, you've decided that the mission, the timeline, the goals, and the deliverables all work for your organization. There are things you're already doing or have been waiting for an opportunity to do to move forward. You'll need to determine whether or not your organization is explicitly eligible to apply. Most recently, I've seen a number of solicitations for Head Start programs, and in those, they're restricted to specific geographic locations. There's a lot of them out there. However, you would want to make sure that you are applying to the one in your state, county, or city, if at all. In this case, eligibility information contained in the solicitation. I'm kind of a little cold. In this case, the eligibility information in the solicitation is technical expertise that they want applicants to have demonstrated in the past. This is an opportunity to provide a portfolio of past works, including documents, screenshots, or evidence of writings in the past. Are convinced that you want to apply for a grant and don't have 100% of that past expertise, think work that you might find in the same way, an opportunity to show that while you haven't, this example, demonstrated expertise in delivering and managing a strategic planning services on a national level, have delivered a national program of a different type and a local strategic planning program. Finally, you'll want to think about what the reporting burden of this application is going to be. Once we emerge on the other side of an application, we think the hardest work has been done. Sometimes it's helpful to think of a federal solicitation as a beautiful comet where there's a big fiery show up front and a very long tail afterwards. Grants is one of the most important parts of being a federal grant recipient. That agency is looking for information or tools or deliverables that they're planning to use in a variety of ways, and your reports are what help them to execute on their mission. Before deciding to submit your application, make sure that you're able to track the items listed in objectives and performance measurements on grant solicitation, and you're not able to do that for each objective. Who might you be able to work with in your community that could help you with that? Worked through all of these steps, and you've prepared what you believe are all parts of your application. I really encourage everyone to look over that application checklist at least 2 more times. You can see on the right-hand side of the screen that it's quite long, but missing even one small part of that application could disqualify you. The thing that I encourage and friends to do, save their work. Even though you may not be successful in receiving a grant on your first try, parts of your application can be used over and over again. Future grants, both to the federal government as well as private grants. This is an opportunity for you to start developing some boilerplate language, information about the general goals and work and accomplishments of your organization, your mission, and how funding will help you to better execute it. That language can be used in every grant until you come home. So that you're saving that for you in future endeavors so that your second, third, and fourth grant applications are easier and faster. The web over to Joyce now. She's going to share with us a little bit about a particular instance when she and her organization were determining whether or not a particular solicitation was a good fit for them.
Hi, everybody. I recently had the experience of reviewing a federal solicitation that was administered by a California agency, but it was basically VOC funding. It was the Victims of Crime funding. And I know that a large portion of our clients, our youth clients, are victims of crime. So I knew we could have a really good case here for securing this funding, and at the same time, I had to go through kind of a long process to figure out how we would propose and basically what our needs are in the program. As Emily said, we want to always try and fund work we're already doing before starting projects, and in this case, this would be, we determine would support our core work. We determine that of all our clients, we do different services for them. So the first thing we decided was we would focus on our immigration clients because, partially because they're the highest population that we have who have been victims of crime, and also I think really the work that we do supports the mission of the VOCA funding, or the intention of the VOCA funding, which is to help, crime victims kind of get back together and be able to lead more healthy lives. So already, began us down the road of slicing and dicing both our clients, who we would put into the project, and then to look at, well, all our immigration clients, which ones are already being reported to other grants. So especially if you have other government funding, we don't want to report a client or a case twice and get into any double dipping situations. So we have to look and see, well, whose work, cases, are what I think, quote, unfunded. I mean, they're all funded in some way, but not reporting to any other source. And then those who are the staff people working in those cases, and are those staff people have FTE that is also, quote unquote, unfunded. And how does all this coordinate? So, number of cases we have that need funding, and and the number of hours that those cases take, and then for staff people. Look at all that because I want to see, just what is our whole, what is the project that we're looking to prove where we need the funding. Is there a match there? And so it's kind of a decent amount of work. We had to slice and dice our, of our database and our other information and our timekeeping and so on. So once we through all that process, we all figure out, we had some questions, so I would encourage you always to use questions while the solicitation is open. And for example, if the solicitation did not mention where the crimes had been committed, a lot of our clients had crimes committed not in the United States, but ask that question to the contact in the solicitation just to be sure before I went any further there was going to be a problem about that. And they confirmed the crime, it did not matter where the crimes were committed, so that was encouraging. We went forward from there. Let's see, where we would also have enough of these unfunded cases to make a competitive project, because, if you have like 4 cases a year, that's obviously not going to be very competitive. So we had to balance the number of cases we could propose with the amount of funding that we would request. And so we really needed to be able to be sure that we would be able to bill that funding down. So when I think about the solicitations, sometimes it's one of the most important things is meeting your goals, and the other is that the actual time that you are going to spend on the project correlates to the funding that you've been granted. You don't want to get into a situation where if things don't take much time as you might have thought, and you actually can't recoup the funding, as it's usually on a cost reimbursement basis. Let's see. Another thing we did was we did it based on the administrative requirements of the funding that have a threshold amount that kind of, because it is so much work, both to do the application, then to do the record keeping required, both in terms of the program data and financial systems that we have to have in place for all the billing, and then the reporting, that we have a threshold on what we would make it worth it for us to do with this. And for us, this time was like $100,000 because of various systems that we don't, just the way impact our agency, we decided that was our threshold. When it was said and done, we kind of came up, we would probably have a good project that would fall about $60,000 or $70,000, but it did not meet our threshold, and we did not decide to pursue the funding. At the same time, I was really, really glad that we did the analysis. I feel like it's really important to look at it, and it's part of due diligence for the agency. It's also good information for us next time around when the solicitation opens up again, if we have a different situation. And then one of the things I do is, because it's very time consuming even to consider the solicitations, and there's so many factors to consider, I made a little tool I use, and it gives us a nice record of what the issues are and why we decided for or against applying for funding. That tool is available, I think, through this webinar. But basically, start by just writing down. I start by checking the eligibility requirements on any RFP, and then make sure that we are eligible before I go any further. And then I break it down kind of into different parts: 3 parts: application requirements, program requirements, administrative requirements. So I look at all 3 of those areas, and I make notes about each of those issues, so that as we're going through the whole process of analyzing whether or not we're going to go forward, sometimes your mind, it's nice to have a place to refer to make sure, yeah, we did check on that piece of it, and that is, eligible there. It also reminds you to keep track of all the things that might come up. Like for us, since we serve clients, we have to look sometimes the requirements about immigration status or income or age or gender, geography, it's nice just to have those all in one place, what requirements are and whether or not, obviously, we need them. And so I use the tool for that purpose. And, yeah, there's like post-award administrative requirements too. And a factor I use to consider when I'm going through these, went through this one in particular, I found the report that we would be required to submit. Those are often available online of whatever agency is administering the funding. You can find the current report or for the last cycle of the grants. And that's much more real when you look at the report, like, okay, this is what we're going to have to fill in and report on. It's a good reminder to make sure that you're actually proposing both specific grant things that is requiring and that you're going to be able to meet those requirements. Let's see if I have anything else. Just another tip or two things that I did this time and try to always do is if you decide to go forward and you do the solicitation, the questions really, foundation funding, I usually try to paint a picture and be more, a little, with funding, I guess what I'm trying to say, you really just need to answer the questions, they just want the information. And you should be very, very explicit, like repeat the question like they taught you in grad school, and even if it sounds kind of, mechanical, they really just need to be clear that you're providing all the information that they ask in the RFP. Yeah, I think those are my main points. Is there, Emily, that we talked about that I am forgetting? I'm just reviewing my notes right now.
Wonderful, Joyce. And I think, in particular, this is a process that you learn by doing. Grants that you apply for, the more different agencies you interact with, the more you'll be able to really capitalize on the similarities in those different processes. Joyce is absolutely correct that, particularly in federal solicitations, answering those questions as clearly and with as little sort of extra flowery language as possible is the best way to go. These are the applications that are being reviewed by several different levels, and what they're looking for are very clear descriptions of how the work will be done and how the work that is proposed to be done connects directly to the goals of the solicitation and the mission of the agency itself. So much, Joyce.
You're welcome. Other tip I forgot.
Sure.
Just recommend again, if you go forward, I would review the list of required attachments on the side, because sometimes those are things, ready to go in your agency, but sometimes they might be things they need to prepare and they can take a while. So you don't want to get all through all the narratives and other portions and feel ready to go, and then that's something time-consuming. You're up against the deadline is still needing to be done.
The required attachments, particularly if you're working with different partners and organizations, can be tricky to get and can take a little bit longer than you often think they should. We have such a brain trust of organizations and individuals on this webinar. I'd love to turn it over to the field a little bit and find out from our participants, what's your experience been in applying for federal grants? And you should be able to chat that information directly to me, and I will be your megaphone on this webinar. In particular, I think we're all interested to hear in what ways, if you do have direct experience applying for federal grants, in what ways your office is set up to support that process and the application itself. waiting for the folks who do have experience applying for federal grants to type in descriptions of how they're set up to succeed in that process. I'd love to hear from everyone in what ways you think NLAA, National Legal Aid and Defenders Association, can help you to feel more prepared for this process, the process of applying to federal grants. I have one question from Andrew, who says that his organization has received federal grants from OEW, DPH, and HUD, but it's curious if it makes sense to apply for a new program. I think particularly as it relates to federal solicitations, the goals of changing administrations and changing agencies mean that there's often a fair bit of overlap between agency effort and agency mission. And so work that may have fallen under HUD in the past may now fall under HHS solicitation. And as well as we in the nonprofit sector and in community-based organizations think about innovation and how we might do our work more effectively, there's always the possibility that you will see an RFP from a federal agency that you weren't expecting that's just the perfect fit. So it's always an opportunity to look for new programs, to stay on the cutting edge. There are also often really interesting pilot opportunities that come out where you might least expect them. And has said that it would be helpful to know when grant opportunities are offered. So currently there are two ways to find that information on the NLADA website, and those are offered under Defender Resources and as well through the Civil Legal Aid Initiative. In cases, the opportunities are posted when we believe that they have a special attraction to our stakeholders. If you are interested in finding out about all of the current open solicitations of the federal government, you can always find that information on grants.gov, which is a searchable database online. I will say it is a lot of information, and so I highly recommend playing around with some of the filtering tools on that website if you're going to go through grants.gov. Christopher, that applications submitted are public record, is his assumption, and if so, an online library of successful applications would be helpful. That's a great point. In many cases, excerpts of applications are available. In particular, through NLADA's Smart Defense program, we're in the process of developing sort of a full slate of tools and resources that a pilot group of 6 public defender agencies use to apply successfully for a federal program, as well as all of those tools and templates that they use for reporting throughout. That's something that is coming, Chris, at least as it relates to the program of Programs of Defender Legal Services at NLADA. I can certainly find out from you. Can you hear me on the call? I've been informed that we may have lost sound temporarily. Okay, so Chris has said that it would be helpful to him to see examples of successful applications, and something that we're definitely working on within NLPA legal public defender programming on a national level across federal agencies. I'm not sure, but I'm happy to look into that and circle back to the group. And as said that as a public defender, he has no financial infrastructure. This is something that we often encounter with our stakeholders in the public defense sector, but also across the nonprofit sector as a whole. Organizations that do not have the financial infrastructure needed to successfully apply for federal solicitations, this is an excellent opportunity to partner with other organizations that maybe do have that infrastructure. In particular, colleges and universities are usually great targets for that. These are organizations that potentially have an interest in the research that might be conducted under the grant, or looking for opportunities to expose their students to new work and new activities. If you are not interested in partnering with a college or university, it's where you may find other organizations that have been previous recipients of the same solicitations who might be able to provide advice or partner with you on future opportunities. Has said that, yes, she does have direct experience applying for federal grants, and that the process in her office is to set up a conference call with the appropriate legal team and grant administration managers to review eligibility, reporting, whether partners are needed. This is something that I highly encourage organizations to do when they're not under a deadline. When you don't have a solicitation RFP coming due is the very best time to think about the process that would best benefit your organization and to parse out who needs to be involved at which points in the application. Now, thinking about this particular slate of webinars, this series, today's session focused on decoding federal solicitations, really reading between lines of RFPs. Our next session is coming up on August 23rd at the same time, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. And in that session, we'll be focusing on how to get started in community partnerships, to identify informal partnerships you may already have, and how to source the right folks for the right job. Following that, we'll have several sessions on particular case studies and unique types of partnerships, but I would love to hear from everyone on the line about what types of funding partnerships you would most like to learn about, what might be most helpful for your office in imagining your future works and sparking some real innovation. Thinking about that, I missed a really great comment from Janice that had a range of experience with different agencies, both in her current role and in another life. But she wishes that it had been more organized, that it's hard to be proactive and that deadlines are tight. This is an excellent opportunity to think about what are those parts of a federal grant application package that are going to be the same in every case. Every federal grant solicitation will request resumes from key staff members to demonstrate that their capacity and capability to do the work. They often will want to know specifically about the history and mission of the organization applying. They need information about annual budgets or salaries. These are documents that any organization can gather and maintain in an evergreen fashion, something that you update either annually or even every 6 months if needed, so that when you do see a solicitation that you're interested in applying for, you can start already having 20 to 25% of the content prepared. From Valencia, she said that she would love helping her clients to find affordable housing, vocational training, and employment placement. Deb has said that she's interested in information where those who are not eligible to be the grantee but could be a subrecipient might get involved. There's also interest in about case management, outcome data tracking, standard CMS and report systems. And that said that her organization is working to expand our medical legal partnerships and would be interested in creative models for funding those. So these are great suggestions. I can tell you that coming up in 2017, we'll be focusing on, in particular, in partnerships between civil and defender organizations, focusing on reentry programs, because we know that enforcement and prison populations are priority areas in our current administration. We'll be focusing on development of communities as well. We are planning to continue this series in 2018, although we'll be taking the month of December off for holidays and for our annual event. As we move forward, please continue to send us your thoughts on how we can better help your organization connect to federal funding. There's an email at the very bottom of your screen that's TTA, which stands for Training and Technical Assistance, at nlada.org. You can send your questions there. So to me directly, I'll share my contact information as well. And I received word from one of my colleagues that the civil team here at NLADA works closely with the National Center for Medical Legal Partnership and would love to think through those funding models. So if you want to share your contact information about funding for legal partnerships, please go ahead and share those, and I'll make sure to get that to our civil team. This webinar and the video recording of it will be posted live to our website in about a week, and we'll make sure to include Joyce's really wonderful Microsoft Excel tool for evaluating whether or not a solicitation might be the right fit for your office. You can see all of our contact information here on the screen now. Myself, Raka, who's from our Civil Legal Aid Initiative, and Joyce, who's joined us to share her real-world experience determining whether or not to apply for a federal grant. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our generous supporters who've made this webinar series possible. The series, developed as a part of the Civil Legal Aid Initiative, is generously supported by the Kresge Foundation and the Public Welfare Foundation. And as part of our SMART Defense program, it is also generously supported by the Bureau of Justice Assistance. Thank you all for joining us today. I'll keep the chat box open for a few more minutes should you have any specific questions and would like myself, Joyce, or Radhika to get back to you. And then we'll circulate those questions and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Again, the webinar recording will go live on our website in a few days to a week, and we'll include Joyce's Microsoft Excel tool that you can download for your organization to determine whether or not a federal solicitation might be the right fit. And we hope to see you online on August 23rd for our second session in the series, Partnerships That Work.